Welcome in, everybody, to this deep dive
Yeah,
into a story that has really shaken, I think, the healthcare world in particular.
absolutely.
Um, the assassination of Brian Thompson,
Right.
CEO of UnitedHealthcare.
Wow.
And this isn't just another executive homicide, right?
Yeah, no,
I mean,
no.
this is the head of the biggest health insurer in the U.S.,
Right,
a company that impacts millions and millions of people.
for sure.
And it was so unsettling. He was gunned down
Yeah,
in broad daylight, right in the heart of New York
it's
City,
brazen.
outside a hotel where UnitedHealthcare was hosting an investor conference.
I mean, talk about a target.
Yeah, so we're going to try to unravel what happened here,
Yeah,
who might be behind it, and what it all means.
absolutely.
And we're going to be using some excellent reporting that the Associated Press has done on this case.
Some really great reporting.
Yeah, so,
It's the kind of story that when you hear it, you wonder, how safe anyone really is.
yeah.
Especially when you consider, the boldness of it all.
All right, so let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about the assassination itself.
Okay.
What do we know about how it went down?
Well, there's a lot of security footage, and it paints a pretty chillingly efficient picture.
Yeah.
The gunman, he approached Thompson from behind,
Mm-hmm.
fired multiple shots,
Yeah.
used a silencer, which, speaks to some level of premeditation.
Right.
Obviously didn't want to attract immediate attention.
Right. And there's that one detail. I don't know if you remember this, but
Yeah.
that really stuck with me. The gunman actually stopped to clear a jam in his weapon
Yeah,
while Thompson was laying there dying on the sidewalk.
I do remember that.
That's not just about efficiency, is it?
I don't think so.
That suggests like a level of cold-bloodedness that's
Right.
goes beyond just getting the job done.
Yeah, I think it speaks to maybe a potential lack of empathy or remorse,
Right.
which, could be a valuable insight for investigators as they're trying to figure out, who this person is. And then, of course, you can't forget about the messages scrawled on the bullets.
Right.
Delay, deny, depose. It's hard not to connect that to the kind of the widespread frustration that we see
Yeah.
with insurance companies.
It's almost like, those words are a direct message, not just to the victim, but to the entire industry.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Delay, deny, defend. That's like a slogan
it is.
for people who feel like they've been, stonewalled by the healthcare system.
Totally.
But, how do we go from like frustration
Yeah.
to something as extreme as this?
Right.
I mean, could those words really be the key to unlocking the motive behind this assassination?
It's a strong possibility when you think about it. Those three words represent the very things that people find most infuriating about dealing with insurance companies, right?
Right.
The delays, the denials, the
Yeah.
constant feeling of having to fight for the care that they need.
So are we looking at like a personal vendetta here, from someone who felt personally wronged by Thompson
Right.
or UnitedHealthcare? Or is this something bigger?
Yeah.
Is this something more symbolic,
Right.
like a statement against the entire healthcare industry?
I mean, it's too early to say for sure, but I think the meticulous planning of this whole thing suggests, a really deep-seated grievance.
Uh-huh.
This wasn't a crime of passion.
No.
This was carefully thought out and planned.
So tell me about what we know about like the lead up to this.
Well, he arrived in New York City by bus from Atlanta 10 days before the shooting.
Wow.
Used a fake ID, paid in cash for a hostel room.
Okay.
And he wore a mask almost constantly, only taking it off once in the hostel lobby.
So we basically have a ghost on our hands.
It seems that way.
A phantom who knew exactly what he was doing and left very few traces behind.
Right. It's like something out of a spy thriller.
Yeah,
Except, the stakes are very real.
of course.
But despite all of his efforts, he still left a trail.
He did.
Yeah, a discarded water bottle. Protein bar wrapper.
Okay.
Both tested for DNA, a dropped cell phone.
Oh, wow.
And of course, the backpack in Central Park.
Right.
These seemingly insignificant items could hold the key to cracking the case wide open.
But so far,
Yeah.
those clues haven't led to an arrest.
Not yet.
It's been weeks now,
Yeah.
and the mystery of this gunman's identity remains unsolved,
Right.
which leads us to, I think, the next big question.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
Right.
And more importantly, why did he target Brian Thompson?
Right.
Why Brian Thompson?
Out of everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate.
Well, it feels like this whole case has kind of ripped the Band-Aid off some really deep wounds in our society.
Absolutely.
We're not just talking about the fear and uncertainty that comes with like an unsolved murder,
Right.
but also, the simmering anger and distrust that many people have towards the entire healthcare system.
And what's fascinating to me is how this case has really become a focal point for those feelings. Suddenly, everyone's sharing their stories about fighting insurance companies, struggling to afford medications, and just generally feeling trapped in a system that seems designed to work against them.
Right.
It makes you wonder if maybe, this assassination just gave voice to a collective frustration that was already bubbling beneath the surface.
Yeah, it's like this tragedy has exposed a raw nerve,
Yeah.
and the reaction has been so visceral.
Yeah.
Some people see the gunman as like a twisted hero,
Right.
someone who finally took a stand against the system that's been hurting them for years.
Yeah. And while I obviously don't condone violence,
Of course.
I can understand why some people might feel that way.
Yeah.
It speaks to a sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
When you're constantly battling with insurance companies, facing denials, and feeling like your health is being held hostage by financial interests, it's easy to understand how someone might feel pushed to the edge.
Absolutely. And remember that Senate report that named UnitedHealthcare,
Right.
along with other big insurance players,
Huh.
for their high denial rate of prior authorizations for Medicare Advantage patients.
Yes, I remember that.
That's not just a statistic. You know,
No.
each denied authorization represents a real person,
Right.
someone who might be struggling to get the care that they desperately need.
And that brings us back to those words on the bullets, right?
Right.
Delay, deny, defend. Those are not just abstract concepts. They represent very real and very frustrating tactics that insurance companies use.
Yeah.
Imagine you're battling a serious illness. You're worried you need a specific treatment to get better,
Right.
but your insurance company keeps denying your claims,
Uh-huh.
forcing you to jump through hoops and endure endless delays.
Right.
Wouldn't that make you angry?
Of course.
Wouldn't that make you question the whole system?
Yeah. It's not hard to see how that kind of experience could fuel so much resentment and despair.
Exactly.
This case raises some really uncomfortable questions about the role of power in our society.
And it's
We have these massive insurance companies wielding enormous influence, often dictating terms to both patients and healthcare providers.
Absolutely. And when that power is perceived as being used unfairly or unjustly, it's bound to create backlash.
Yeah.
It's a classic David and Goliath scenario,
Right.
but with life or death consequences.
Yeah, and let's not forget the impact this whole case has had on the healthcare industry itself.
Oh, right.
We're seeing companies ramp up security measures,
Yeah.
pull executive photos from their websites, and even temporarily close offices out of fear.
It's a clear indication that this event has rattled them.
Yeah.
It's forced them to confront the very real possibility that their decisions, their policies, could have unintended and potentially dangerous consequences.
Right. But is this just a fleeting moment of fear?
Yeah.
Will things eventually go back to normal? Or has this case fundamentally changed the relationship between insurance companies and the public?
That's a good question.
And what about the people who rely on these companies for their health coverage?
Right.
How are they feeling about all of this?
It's safe to say that trust has been eroded.
Yeah,
And when trust breaks down, it's very difficult to rebuild.
it is.
This case has exposed a deep rift between insurance companies and the people they're supposed to serve.
Right.
And it's going to take a lot of effort to bridge that divide.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How do we move beyond the fear and anger and start having a constructive conversation about solutions?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we all need healthcare.
We do.
And we all deserve a system that's fair and transparent and puts patients first.
Absolutely. A system that works for everyone.
As we've been going through this case, it's become clear that the assassination of Brian Thompson was about so much more than just one man.
I think you're right. It's exposed like this deep-seated fear that many of us harbor but rarely acknowledge,
Yeah.
the fear that those in power are not accountable to us.
Right. And it's like the gunman took those anxieties
Yeah.
and turned them into something tangible,
Right.
something terrifying.
Those three words on the bullets, delay, deny, depose, they really do feel like an indictment of a system that just seems rigged against the average person.
A system where, corporate profits are prioritized over patient well-being,
For sure.
and those in power seem to operate with impunity.
Yeah. And, this case has brought all those simmering resentments to the surface.
Right.
It's forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the healthcare industry.
Truths about the influence of lobbyists,
Mm.
the revolving door between government and corporations,
Yeah.
and the immense power these companies wield over our lives.
Think about it. Your health, Your access to care, your financial security, all of these things can be impacted by the decisions made in corporate boardrooms.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, do these executives, these CEOs,
Right.
do they truly understand the real-world consequences of their actions?
That's the question, isn't it? Are they so insulated by wealth and privilege that they've lost touch with the struggles of everyday people?
I mean, the fact that this assassination happened at all suggests a breakdown in that connection,
Right.
like a feeling that the system is no longer responsive to the needs of the people it's supposed to serve.
Absolutely. And it really begs the question, will this tragedy be a catalyst for meaningful change?
Yeah, or will it just fade into the background noise of another news cycle?
Because if we're being honest with ourselves, we've seen this kind of outrage before, right?
Right.
We've heard the calls for reform, the promises of accountability.
Right. But how often do those promises actually translate into real action?
That's the challenge before us, I think, to
Yeah.
channel this collective anger and frustration into a sustained movement for change.
A movement that demands transparency, accountability,
Yes.
and a healthcare system that prioritizes patients over profits.
It won't be easy.
No,
The forces arrayed against that kind of change are powerful and very entrenched.
they are. But this case has shown us what can happen when those in power become too detached from the people they represent.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that the pursuit of profit without a sense of social responsibility can have some really dangerous and unpredictable consequences.
So what does this all mean for, like, the average person navigating the complexities of the healthcare system?
I think it means that your voice matters, your experiences matter, and your
Sure.
demands for a better system, they matter.
Don't let this moment pass without making your voice heard.
Right. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions.
Because at the end of the day, we all deserve a healthcare system that's truly worthy of its name.
Absolutely, one that prioritizes care, compassion, and the well-being of all of us.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a truly complex and unsettling case.
Yeah, we hope that this conversation has sparked some critical thinking and maybe even a renewed sense of urgency about the need for change.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring these issues, to engage in thoughtful dialogue, and to never stop seeking a better, healthier future for yourself and for all of us.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.